Have you ever wondered why, after years of meditation, prayer, and spiritual practices, you still feel like something's missing? Why does that deep sense of peace and divine connection seem to hover just beyond your reach, no matter how hard you try? What if I told you that the very act of seeking spiritual breakthrough is the exact thing preventing you from experiencing it? Throughout human history, we've built temples, climbed mountains, and performed countless rituals in our quest for the divine. We've been taught to reach outward, to stretch ourselves toward a God we believe exists somewhere out there, separate from us, distant, watching from above. Has this ever happened to you? That exhausting feeling of constantly striving, constantly doing, constantly trying to become worthy of spiritual blessings, only to end each day feeling exactly the same? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Here's the truth that Smith Wigglesworth discovered, and that transformed thousands of lives. We've been looking in entirely the wrong direction. The breakthrough you're seeking isn't found through more effort, more technique, or more spiritual achievement. In fact, the moment you stop seeking is precisely when everything changes. When Jesus spoke those two simple words, I am, he wasn't just introducing himself. He was unveiling the most revolutionary spiritual secret ever revealed to humanity. These words contain within them the complete answer to every question you've ever asked about healing, abundance, peace, and divine power. What you're about to discover might surprise you, especially if you've spent years believing that God is something you need to reach for, pray to, or somehow persuade to work in your favor. The revelation is this: the I that you speak when you say I am isn't the limited person you think you are. It isn't your job title, your bank account, your past mistakes, or your current struggles. That I is the eternal presence of God expressing as you, right here, right now, in this very moment. You're not trying to connect with the divine, you are the divine expression in human form. Stay with me until the end, because this understanding doesn't just change your perspective, it changes your entire experience of reality. When you truly grasp what I am means, illness loses its power, lack dissolves, and problems that once seemed insurmountable simply fade away, not through struggle, but through recognition of what has always been true. So what happens when you finally stop the exhausting search and allow the I am to speak through you? What opens up when you cease identifying with limitation and instead recognize your true nature as infinite consciousness itself? The answer will challenge everything you've been taught about spirituality, and it begins with understanding why your seeking has kept you trapped. Now, I want to go even deeper into this profound revelation, because what Smith Wigglesworth understood about Jesus' words, I and the Father are one, completely transforms everything we think we know about spirituality. Most people who hear that statement assume Jesus was claiming something unique to himself, a special divine status that ordinary humans could never attain. But that interpretation misses the entire point of what he was teaching. Jesus wasn't setting himself apart from humanity. He was revealing a universal truth about consciousness itself, about the very nature of what I am actually means. When he declared his oneness with the divine, he was holding up a mirror to show us our own true identity. The breakthrough that transformed Smith Wigglesworth's entire life and ministry came when he realized that the I am he spoke wasn't his limited human personality. It was the infinite expressing through him. This wasn't blasphemy or ego. It was the most humble recognition possible that the life living through him wasn't his own small effort, but the movement of God itself. This understanding creates a massive shift in how we approach our entire spiritual journey. We stop trying to become something we're not and start recognizing what we've always been. The transformation isn't about adding more practices, more knowledge, or more spiritual merit. It's about removing the layers of false identity we've wrapped around our true self. But here's where the hidden truth gets uncomfortable, because most of us unknowingly sabotage this recognition every single day through the words we speak. Pay attention to your internal dialogue right now. How many times today have you said or thought, "I am tired, I am struggling, I am worried, I am not enough"? These aren't just harmless observations about your current state. They're powerful declarations of identity that shape your entire experience of reality. Every time you attach "I am" to a temporary condition or limitation, you're making a critical mistake in consciousness. You're claiming that the infinite presence, the very "I am" that Jesus recognized as one with God, is somehow limited, broken, or lacking. Think about the impact of that decision. When you say "I am sick," you're not just describing symptoms. You're identifying your essential self with illness. When you declare "I am broke," you're not acknowledging a bank balance. You're claiming poverty as your identity. If something in these words resonated with you, I'd love to have you as part of this community. Hit that subscribe button as we continue exploring these truths that shift consciousness from within. This misidentification is the root cause behind every form of suffering you experience. Not the circumstances themselves, but what you claim the "I am" is in relationship to those circumstances. The behind-the-scenes truth that Smith Wigglesworth discovered through countless healings and miracles is that conditions don't have power over you. Your identification with them does. The moment you stop claiming limitation as your identity, that limitation loses its grip on your experience. This isn't positive thinking or pretending problems don't exist. It's something far more powerful. It's the recognition that the "I" speaking through you cannot actually be sick, broke, afraid, or insufficient, because that "I" is the eternal presence of God. The body may show symptoms, the bank account may show numbers, the mind may show thoughts, but none of these conditions define what you truly are. If this resonates with something deep inside you, if you're beginning to see how your own words have been reinforcing the very limitations you're trying to escape, write in the comments, "I see it now." Now, let me show you the pattern that reveals the blueprint for everything Jesus taught about spiritual power. If you go through every gospel account, every recorded teaching, every healing miracle, you'll notice something remarkable. Jesus never once said, "I am sick," never declared, "I am lacking," never claimed, "I am weak" or "I am limited." This wasn't accidental. It was the most deliberate demonstration of spiritual mastery ever given to humanity. Instead, his declarations were always aligned with the infinite. "I am the resurrection and the life. I am the light of the world. I am the way, the truth, and the life." Every single statement was a conscious identification with eternal truth rather than temporary conditions. He wasn't denying that bodies got sick around him or that people experienced lack. He simply refused to claim those conditions as his identity. This distinction makes all the difference in your spiritual journey and the transformation you experience. What Smith Wigglesworth discovered through studying this pattern is that Jesus was showing us exactly how consciousness operates. When you identify with limitation, you empower limitation. When you identify with the infinite, you allow the infinite to express through you. It's not about forcing change or manipulating reality. It's about aligning your sense of identity with what's eternally true rather than what appears temporarily real. But here's where most spiritual teachings get it completely wrong, and this hidden truth will save you years of unnecessary struggle. We've been told that spiritual growth is about becoming something more, becoming enlightened, becoming holy, becoming worthy, becoming spiritually advanced. Entire systems have been built around this mindset of addition. as if you're somehow incomplete and need to acquire something you don't already possess. The revelation that changed everything for Smith Wigglesworth and thousands who learned from him is this: the I am isn't something you create, develop, or achieve through years of meditation, prayer, or spiritual practice. It already is the foundation of your being. You don't become the I am through good works or religious devotion. You simply stop identifying with what you are not. This is the process of unveiling rather than becoming. Think about a statue covered in layers of clay. The masterpiece isn't created by adding more material. It's revealed by removing what doesn't belong. Your true identity as the I am isn't hidden because it's far away or difficult to reach. It's hidden beneath layers of false identification. All those I am sick, I am afraid, I am not enough declarations you've been making your entire life. The impact of understanding this cannot be overstated. It means you're not on a journey to somewhere else. You're not trying to become someone different. You're not working towards some future spiritual achievement. You're simply recognizing what has always been true, what is true right now in this very moment. The infinite presence isn't something you'll access after enough meditation sessions or after you've proven yourself worthy. It's what's reading these words right now, what's aware of your thoughts, what exists before your next breath and after your last. This behind-the-scenes understanding completely transforms your relationship with spiritual practice itself. Meditation stops being about trying to reach God and becomes about releasing the thoughts that obscure your true nature. Prayer stops being about asking an external deity for help and becomes about aligning with what you already are. If you're sensing that your entire approach to spirituality might need this fundamental shift from becoming to unveiling, write in the comments, "I'm ready to unveil." Now let me show you how this understanding completely revolutionizes your approach to one of life's most challenging experiences: illness. When symptoms appear in your body, when pain strikes, when a diagnosis comes, the automatic human response is to say, "I am sick and I need healing." It sounds reasonable, even necessary. But notice what happens in that single statement. You've just claimed sickness as your identity. You've taken a temporary condition appearing in your experience and declared it to be the truth of what you are. Smith Wigglesworth discovered something that transforms everything about healing. The I that you truly are cannot be sick. Not because you're denying symptoms or pretending they don't exist, but because that I is infinite spirit expressing as your life. The body may indeed show symptoms: pain, fever, weakness, dysfunction. These appearances are real in their own dimension, but they don't define your essential nature, which is perfect, whole, and complete right now, regardless of what the body is experiencing. This distinction isn't just philosophical wordplay. It's the key that unlocks genuine transformation. When you stop identifying with the condition and instead recognize what you truly are, something shifts in consciousness that allows healing to happen naturally. You're not fighting the illness or trying to overcome it through willpower. You're simply refusing to claim it as your identity. The healing comes not because you've done something right, but because you've stopped doing something wrong. You've stopped misidentifying the infinite as finite. But here's where the hidden truth gets even more profound, because this principle exposes the fundamental flaw in how we've been taught to approach spirituality itself. Walk into any bookstore, scroll through any spiritual content online, and you'll find thousands of techniques. Visualize white light, repeat affirmations 50 times each morning, perform specific rituals, manifest through mental imagery, meditate in prescribed positions. The entire spiritual marketplace is built on giving you something to do. And yes, these practices can be helpful. They can quiet the mind, focus, attention, create space for insight. But Jesus revealed something far more powerful than any technique or practice. he revealed a state of being. The I am is not an action you perform. It's a recognition of what already is. This distinction completely transforms your spiritual journey from exhausting effort to restful awareness. When you understand this, your entire relationship with prayer changes. You stop trying to get things from God through the right combination of words or the proper intensity of emotion. You stop bargaining, pleading, or attempting to convince an external power to intervene in your life. Instead, you realize that God is already the substance of your being, expressing as your experience right now. Not something you need to attract or access, but what you already are beneath the surface of appearances. This shift from doing to being might sound subtle, but its impact is revolutionary. It means your spiritual power doesn't depend on how many hours you meditate, how perfectly you pray, or how many spiritual books you've read. It depends on one thing: your recognition of what I am actually means. Every technique, every practice, every discipline is only valuable to the degree that it helps you recognize this truth. The moment you grasp it, you can drop all the techniques and simply be what you are. If this understanding is beginning to dissolve the pressure you felt to constantly do more spiritually, write in the comments, "being overdoing." Now, let me take you behind the scenes of what Smith Wigglesworth actually discovered through working with thousands of people seeking healing. The revelation is so simple that most people miss it entirely. Healing isn't about changing conditions. It's not about fixing what's broken, eliminating symptoms, or restoring what was lost. Healing is fundamentally about changing identity. When you truly know yourself as the I am, when that recognition becomes more real to you than any appearance, conditions have no choice but to align with that truth. You don't heal the body through effort or technique. You recognize that the I of your being was never sick in the first place. The body is showing an experience, yes. Symptoms are appearing, absolutely. But the consciousness observing those symptoms, the I that is aware of the pain, that I itself cannot be touched by what it observes. This understanding isn't denial. It's accurate perception of reality from a higher dimension of awareness. If this content brought clarity or shifted something in your awareness, tap that like button. It helps others discover these teachings too. Let me share a story that demonstrates exactly how this works in real life, because theory alone won't change your experience. A woman named Margaret had been suffering with debilitating chronic pain for 7 years. The kind of pain that consumed every waking moment, that doctors couldn't explain despite countless tests and examinations. She'd tried everything medicine could offer, explored alternative treatments, visited healers, practiced meditation, repeated affirmations. Nothing worked. The pain remained, relentless and mysterious. When she finally came to Smith Wigglesworth, she was desperate, almost hopeless. She expected him to pray for her, to perform some healing ritual, to do something to fix her condition. Instead, he did something that initially confused her completely. He simply asked one penetrating question. Who is the... That says, I am in pain? Then he pressed deeper. Can infinite spirit hurt? Can God suffer? Margaret sat in silence, genuinely contemplating this question for nearly 20 minutes. And in that silence, something profound began to shift in her consciousness. She realized that for 7 years, she'd been identifying her true self, the I am of her being, with a body and its sensations. She'd been claiming that the infinite presence expressing as her life was somehow limited by physical symptoms. She'd been making pain her identity, rather than recognizing it as a temporary experience appearing in consciousness. This wasn't just an intellectual understanding. It was a fundamental transformation in how she perceived herself. The shift happened not in her body, but in her sense of identity. And here's what reveals the hidden truth about how healing actually works. Within 3 months of this change in consciousness, the pain that had dominated her life for 7 years completely vanished. Not because she fought it or found some miracle cure, but because she stopped claiming it as who she was. The impact of this story goes far beyond one woman's healing. It reveals the principle behind every genuine transformation. When identification changes, experience must follow. Margaret didn't heal by changing the condition. She healed by recognizing that the I am she truly was had never been touched by any condition. If you've been fighting a condition that seems impossible to overcome, write in the comments, "I'm ready to shift identity." Now let me show you how this same principle of identity transformation works in areas of life that seem completely unrelated to physical healing. Because the truth is that every challenge you face, financial, relational, emotional, operates by the exact same spiritual law. Consider the story of Robert, a businessman who was watching his entire world collapse. His company was on the edge of bankruptcy, drowning in debt, customers disappearing, everything he'd built over decades crumbling before his eyes. But here's what was really destroying his business. Not the market conditions, not the competition, not even the debt. It was his declarations of identity. Every morning he'd wake up and immediately claim, "I am failing and I am losing everything." His prayers reflected this mindset. Desperate pleas for God to rescue him, to send customers, to provide some external miracle. He was reinforcing limitation with every word, while simultaneously asking for abundance. When Robert encountered Smith Wigglesworth's teaching about the I am, something clicked. He realized he'd been claiming lack and failure as his identity. He'd been declaring that the infinite presence expressing as his life was somehow broke and powerless. So he started a revolutionary practice that defied all conventional business logic. Every morning, before looking at numbers, before checking emails, before seeing the mounting bills, he would sit quietly and recognize, "I am is the abundance of God. I am is infinite resource. I am is divine intelligence expressing." Notice he wasn't asking for these qualities or trying to manifest them. He was recognizing them as already true about his being. Within 4 months, new ideas began appearing in his awareness that had been invisible before. Connections opened that seemed like coincidences, but were actually consciousness attracting matching experiences. Opportunities presented themselves that no amount of strategic planning could have created. His business didn't just survive, it transformed into something far more aligned with his true purpose. The hidden truth behind Robert's transformation reveals something crucial about how reality actually works. The change didn't happen in his circumstances first, it happened in his consciousness. When he stopped identifying with lack, abundance had space to flow through him naturally, not because he created it or earned it, but because he stopped blocking it with false identity. But this principle becomes even more powerful when you understand how it applies to the people around you. A mother came to Smith Wigglesworth absolutely devastated about her son's addiction. She'd tried every approach: intervention, therapy, tough love, enabling. Nothing worked. Her son kept using, kept disappearing, kept breaking her heart. She came looking for someone to fix her child, to pray him into sobriety, to somehow force a transformation. What Smith Wigglesworth told her shocked her completely. He said, "Stop praying for your son to change. Stop seeing him as an addict. Stop identifying him with his condition. Instead, recognize the truth. Your son's real identity is, I am the presence of God. And that presence cannot be addicted, cannot be broken, cannot be lost. See only that truth regardless of what appears." For 6 months, she practiced this revolutionary approach. Some days her son seemed worse, but she held firmly to the truth of his being, not the appearance of his behavior. She stopped mothering the addiction and started recognizing the infinite presence beneath it. And slowly, something shifted in him. He entered treatment on his own initiative, and stayed. Years later, he remains free, not because she changed him, but because she stopped empowering the false identity. If you're realizing how your own declarations about yourself or others might be reinforcing the very limitations you're trying to escape, write in the comments. Identity creates experience. Now let me share with you the practical discipline that actually embodies this understanding in your daily life, because intellectual comprehension alone won't transform your experience. Smith Wigglesworth called this vital practice practicing the presence, and it's simpler than most spiritual techniques, yet more powerful than anything you've tried before. This isn't about adding another task to your morning routine or carving out special time for meditation. It's about recognizing what's already true in the smallest, most ordinary moments of your day. When you first wake up, before your mind floods with problems and tasks, recognize, I am awake. But hear the difference in what that means. You're not waking as a limited person facing another difficult day full of challenges. You're waking as infinite consciousness expressing itself as this particular experience. When you eat, recognize, I am sustained by infinite substance. When you work, recognize, I am is the intelligence accomplishing this task. The crucial distinction here is that this isn't affirmation trying to make something true that you believe isn't true yet. It's recognition, acknowledging what has always been present. Affirmations come from a mindset of lack, attempting to create what you don't have. They require effort and repetition because you're trying to convince yourself of something your deeper consciousness doesn't believe. But recognition comes from wholeness. It's simply seeing what is, acknowledging the reality that exists beneath appearances. One struggles against doubt, the other rests in certainty. This difference transforms everything about your spiritual practice. But here's where the hidden power really emerges, in those inevitable moments when life presents crisis or intense challenge. For these situations, Smith Wigglesworth taught a technique he simply called the pause. When fear grips you, when pain overwhelms you, when circumstances seem absolutely impossible, pause everything. Don't react. Don't try to solve. Don't panic. Don't immediately reach for your phone or dive into action. Simply pause and return to the I am. This decision interrupts the momentum of false identity and creates space for truth to emerge. In the pause, you ask yourself one question. What is the truth of my being right now? Not what appears to be true, not what circumstances are showing you, not what other people are saying, but what is eternally, unchangeably true about the I that you are. And the answer is always the same. I am is the presence of God, untouched by any condition. I am is whole. I am is supplied. I am is safe. Not because circumstances prove it, but because this is the unchangeable nature of infinite being expressing as you. A woman used this exact technique during a terrifying medical emergency. Her doctor found something suspicious and scheduled immediate surgery. Terror consumed her, but she remembered the pause. Every time fear arose, she stopped. She didn't deny the situation or fight the fear. She simply returned to truth. I am his perfect life. I am cannot be threatened. By the time of her pre-surgery scan, what they'd seen had completely vanished. The transformation didn't come from escaping reality, but from returning to a deeper reality beneath appearances. If you're beginning to see how the pause could change your automatic reactions to difficult situations, write in the comments, I'm learning to pause. Now let me be completely honest with you about what really happens when you begin this transformation, because most spiritual teachers won't tell you about the challenges that emerge on this journey. Living from I am consciousness sounds beautiful in theory, but the practical reality includes moments that will test everything you think you understand. You'll practice, you'll recognize, you'll identify as I am, and yet your circumstances may remain exactly the same for weeks or even months. The illness continues, the financial lack persists, the relationship problem doesn't dissolve. In these moments, your mind will scream at you, "This doesn't work. You're fooling yourself. You need to do something. Take action. Fix it the old way through human effort and struggle." The temptation to abandon this understanding and return to familiar patterns of seeking and striving becomes almost overwhelming. This is where most people give up, right before the breakthrough happens. Smith Wigglesworth's answer to this challenge was both simple and demanding. Spiritual realization works in consciousness first, not in conditions. Sometimes the inner shift happens quickly and outer change follows immediately. You've seen stories like Margaret's or Robert's where transformation seemed rapid, but other times the inner work takes consistent practice over months before you see any evidence in the physical world. Your task isn't to make things happen. Your task is to know the truth and remain faithful to it regardless of what appears. This requires a revolutionary shift in how you measure progress on your spiritual journey. Stop looking at conditions as your evidence. Start paying attention to your inner state. When you can remain calm in the midst of seeming chaos, that's real evidence your consciousness is transforming. When fear arises but no longer controls your decisions, that's progress. When circumstances look terrible but you feel an underlying peace you can't quite explain, that's the I am recognition taking root deeper than surface appearances. The hidden truth about transformation is that consciousness must shift before conditions can align. You're not waiting for external proof to validate your practice. You're establishing an internal foundation that naturally produces external reflection. The patience required here isn't passive waiting, it's active knowing, holding to truth even when every appearance contradicts it. But here's what makes the journey worthwhile. What happens when you navigate these challenges and continue practicing through doubt and delay? Living as I am stops being something you do during meditation or when problems arise. It becomes your constant state, your natural way of being. You wake as I am. You walk as I am. You work as I am. You love as I am. You rest as I am. Every experience becomes the infinite expressing in finite form. This doesn't mean you suddenly become perfect in behavior or never make mistakes. You'll still have preferences, still experience the full range of human emotions, still face challenges that require practical decisions. But underneath it all, you know what you are, like a wave that still looks and moves like a wave, rises and falls with all the other waves, but never forgets for a moment that it's the ocean. You live as a unique expression that knows itself as the infinite presence beneath every form. If you're committed to staying with this practice, even when nothing seems to be changing externally, write in the comments, "I trust the process." As we come to the close of this exploration together, I want you to know that what we've discussed today isn't just another spiritual concept to add to your collection. This is the living truth that has the power to transform every dimension of your experience when you allow it to take root in your consciousness. The journey from seeking to being, from doing to recognizing, from becoming to unveiling. This is the path that Smith Wigglesworth walked and showed thousands of others how to walk as well. If you've made it all the way here with me, if something in these words resonated deeper than intellectual understanding, I'd love to have you as part of this community. Hit that subscribe button because we're continuing to explore these profound truths that shift consciousness from the inside out. Each video is designed to deepen your recognition of who you truly are beneath all the layers of false identity. And leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me, so I know you were here, so I can see that this understanding is reaching the people who are ready for it." Your presence matters, and knowing you're on this journey too creates a connection that goes beyond just watching videos. If this content brought clarity or shifted something in your awareness today, tap that like button. It helps more people discover these teachings, and honestly, it lets me know this work is serving its purpose. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into how this I am consciousness transforms your relationship with everything around you. Click and continue with me over there, because what you've discovered today is just the beginning of recognizing what has always been true about your being.